I'll just kind of give a little brief on what the Edison equation is. Thomas Edison is widely known for his kind of perspective on failure and how it leads to success, and or how it leads to discoveries, and whatever you may define as success. And that this is just kind of a take on that. As we hear, and when I say we, I mean entrepreneurs are people that are trying to go out and seek their own success. Often are always hearing either model yourself after successful people, lots of success stories, growth stories, those kinds of things. So I just kind of got to the point where I'm like, well, all of those people that have been successful, 100% of them have had failures and mistakes and stuff, and I want to hear those because that's where they learned how to to move on to the next step, and more importantly, learning how to carry yourself past that mentally as well is a big step for entrepreneurs, especially people, folks that are new to the concept of entrepreneurship.
I will sometimes get asked by students why I talk about so many things I did wrong and so many failures I had. Why don't you tell us more about all the great things that happened and all the things you did right? And I tell them pretty much what you're saying is that's not what you're going to learn from. That's most important. It's these other lessons that, as much as I really don't want to talk about them, are probably the ones that are going to give you the most insights.
Hmm. I remember just specific stories, in class with you telling us, spending a lot more time than I had ever, had on the failure side of things, and I enjoyed those. I think that as a youth, I probably did want to hear because it's so much more, sexy, if you will, to talk about all the success parts. But I mean, I remember coming in and even taking things like growth. I remember bringing in someone to talk about their explosive growth that they were having and how they were essentially failing at handling it.
Yep.
And just the fact that there can even be failure in success, if you will.
Right.
That's pretty interesting.
Actually, one of the leading causes of entrepreneurial failure is entrepreneurial success.
Yeah. Elaborate on that.
It, you're not going to make a lot of mistakes kind of muddling along doing something kind of in a static state. And so there can be businesses that do real well for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, and then for whatever reason, and we see this a lot, they get into this growth phase. And that's when things get dangerous because they don't understand all the things that go into managing and running and sustaining and supporting a growing organization. And so you see a business that looked perfectly healthy for a number of years all of a sudden get distressed, and it seems contrary to what you would think would be going on because they've had so much growth. It's really, I mean, our business is a case in point in that we kind of grew steadily, and we were pretty slow growth for probably the first 7 years. My partners were in business, very small operation together, the two of them, for 2 years. And then I joined them and became the third partner. And then we kicked in some growth, and we grew a little bit. And all of a sudden, we hit a couple of pretty good and solid opportunities. And I was old school. I was trained. Your job as a business person is to maximize market share. And if there's a customer out there that wants you, you find that customer and you take care of that customer. The problem is that old school was really developed and modeled around very large, stable corporations that were fighting each other for market share. And it wasn't really a complete model for those of us who had growth organizations that not only were chasing market, developing products to grow the business, but also putting in place just basic systems to make things happen. So that's why so many successful organizations are the ones that end up failing, is that they reach that stress point where there's just too many things that are in place, and the customers, suppliers, bankers, everybody just starts to abandon ship because it's not working.
Yeah. Yeah, there is that, I guess, tipping point, as many have coined it. In every business is growth where you don't need a lot. And that slow growth time, you're not necessarily, I guess, needing to in some cases, pay attention to a whole lot of things, aspects of the business.
Pretty
and,
simple.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, when it goes haywire, it's gonna reveal all the things
Yeah,
that you weren't paying attention to in the first place.
and I'm not necessarily one who buys into the tipping point theory.
Yeah.
I think it oversimplifies the problem.
Yeah.
I think it's more systemic, and I think if you look at most situations, it's not one thing. It's not one issue. It's not one point in time. It's 2, 3, 4, 5 years worth of things that accumulated that
Yeah.
they don't even. It doesn't even need that trigger event to push them over. That might be what they perceive to have happened. But it's sort of like a marriage gone bad. You kind of think it's this one event that blows it up.
Yeah.
No, it's probably 10 years of not paying attention to what needs to be paid attention
That's
to.
a good comparison. So it is that perceived tipping point.